The complete story of Chernobyl. Imagine going to work on an ordinary night, expecting everything to be normal, but within a few hours, one mistake would trigger the worst nuclear disaster in human history. Thousands of lives would change forever, an entire city would be abandoned, and a place would become so dangerous that even today, decades later, people still cannot live there. This is the complete story of Chernobyl. To understand what happened, we need to go back to the Soviet Union in 1986. During this time, the Soviet Union was one of the world's most powerful countries. It relied heavily on nuclear power to provide electricity to millions of people. Near the city of Pripyat, in what is now Ukraine, stood the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. It was considered one of the Soviet Union's greatest engineering achievements. Thousands of workers operated the plant every day, and nearby, almost 50,000 people lived peaceful lives in the modern city of Pripyat. On the evening of April the 25th, 1986, engineers planned a routine safety test on reactor number 4. The purpose of the test was simple. They wanted to know whether the turbines could continue producing enough electricity for a short time if the plant suddenly lost power. It sounded like an ordinary test, but what happened next would shock the entire world. To perform the test, operators slowly reduced the reactor's power. However, because of unexpected delays and several critical mistakes, the reactor became unstable. Instead of stopping the experiment, the operators decided to continue. As the reactor became more unstable, emergency safety systems were switched off to prevent them from interrupting the test. This decision removed important layers of protection that were designed to keep the reactor safe. Inside the reactor, enormous amounts of heat began building up. Pressure increased rapidly, but the control room operators didn't fully realize how dangerous the situation had become. Then, at exactly 1:23 in the morning, on April 26th, everything went terribly wrong. The emergency shutdown button was pressed. The operators believed this would stop the reactor immediately. Instead, because of a serious design flaw in the RBMK reactor, the shutdown actually caused an even more dangerous reaction. Within seconds, an enormous explosion ripped through reactor number 4. The massive concrete roof, weighing hundreds of tons, was blown into the air. A second explosion followed almost immediately. The reactor was completely destroyed. Pieces of burning radioactive graphite were thrown across the roof of the power plant. A huge column of radioactive smoke rose high into the night sky. Workers inside the building had no idea what had just happened. Many believed it was only a normal industrial fire. They didn't know they were standing in one of the most radioactive places on Earth. Within minutes, firefighters rushed toward the burning reactor. They arrived without protective suits, without radiation detectors, without any understanding of the invisible danger surrounding them. Their only mission was to put out the fire. As they climbed onto the roof, they unknowingly stepped on highly radioactive debris. Many of them began feeling sick within hours. Some reported a strange, metallic taste in their mouths. Others developed headaches, dizziness, and severe nausea. But no one yet understood the true scale of the disaster. Meanwhile, in the nearby city of Pripyat, families were sleeping peacefully. Children, parents, and workers had absolutely no idea that invisible radioactive particles were already spreading across their city. By sunrise, Chernobyl had become the site of the worst nuclear disaster in human history, but the most shocking part of the story was only beginning. Although the reactor had exploded, the people of Pripyat continued their normal lives. Children played outside, families walked through the streets, and workers went to their jobs. No one had been told that deadly radiation was already spreading across the city. The radiation released from reactor number 4 was hundreds of times more dangerous than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. Yet for nearly 36 hours, the Soviet government did not order an evacuation. During that time, thousands of people unknowingly breathed radioactive air and were exposed to dangerous levels of radiation. Finally, on the afternoon of April 27, buses began arriving in Pripyat. Officials announced that residents would be leaving for only a few days. They were told to bring only essential items and leave everything else behind. Believing they would soon return, families locked their doors and boarded the buses, but they never came back. Pripyat became a ghost city overnight. Apartments remained exactly as they were. Toys stayed on the floors, books remained on school desks, and amusement park rides were left standing in complete silence. Meanwhile, the burning reactor continued releasing radioactive material into the atmosphere. The radioactive cloud spread across Ukraine, Belarus, Russia, and many parts of Europe. Several countries detected unusual radiation levels before the Soviet Union officially admitted that an accident had happened. Soon, thousands of soldiers, engineers, miners, firefighters, and volunteers were sent to Chernobyl. These brave people became known as the liquidators. Their mission was incredibly dangerous. Some cleared highly radioactive debris from rooftops. Others built a massive concrete structure called the sarcophagus around the destroyed reactor to contain the radiation. Many worked for only a few minutes at a time because radiation levels were so high that staying longer could be fatal. To reduce radiation beneath the reactor, miners dug a tunnel underneath the plant in extremely difficult conditions. Many of these workers risked their health to prevent an even greater disaster. Over the following months, more than 100,000 people were permanently evacuated from nearby towns and villages. A large exclusion zone was created around the power plant, where people were no longer allowed to live. Today, that exclusion zone still exists. Nature has slowly returned. Forests have grown, wild animals roam freely, and abandoned buildings continue to decay in silence. Even though humans left, wildlife adapted to the empty environment. Scientists continue studying the area to understand how radiation affects nature over long periods. The Chernobyl disaster also changed nuclear safety forever. Countries around the world introduced stricter safety regulations, improved reactor designs, and developed better emergency response plans. Despite these improvements, Chernobyl remains one of history's greatest warnings about the consequences of human error, poor communication, and flawed technology. More than 40 years later, the abandoned city of Pripyat still stands frozen in time. Rusting Ferris wheels, empty classrooms, abandoned hospitals, and silent apartment buildings remind visitors of the lives that changed forever on that April night in 1986. The disaster may have ended decades ago, but its lessons continue to shape the world today. Chernobyl is more than just a nuclear accident. It is a reminder that one single night can change history forever. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories from History. Subscribe for more history videos.